Okay. Hey guys. Welcome to 2D Sprite Sheet Animation. As it says in my presentation, I still haven't figured out skeleton animation. So this is what we got so far. Um, for anyone who hasn't been in a meeting previously or may have forgotten, we have meeting chat right here. I'll go ahead and say hi. If you have any questions and don't feel comfortable speaking aloud, you can go ahead and say stuff there, or feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt me. I really don't care, and I would rather have everything be clear while I'm still thinking about it than having to, go back, rethink about what I just said, and have to go through all that. Um, with that all said, let's go ahead and get started. Um, quick thing before I begin. Here's how the project looks now. I did go through and do some slight reorganizing just to make things a little bit um easier moving forward. Because as I've been working more with Unity, I've been remembering how things are more supposed to go. One thing, I've got the scenes folder, which hasn't changed, scripts folder hasn't changed, and then instead of having separate materials folders and um, sprites folders, like instead of having prefabs as well, every single item in the game has its own folder here, and then going in, um, prefabs and things are listed. This is more in line with what I've seen with downloading assets projects off of the store. Um, so I'm just trying to get things in a way that is more in line with how Unity normally works. And one other thing is I have been in a previous meeting, someone suggested, "Hey, why don't you just make the coin script um part of the player movement script?" And at the time I thought, well, I'm not quite sure because I've seen it done a different way. In retrospect, that was a good suggestion. I haven't implemented it yet, but I'm going to. Um, I forgot who it was who made that suggestion, but thank you, whoever that was. Moving on. Uh, Animation. That's what you guys came here for, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Um, so this is a pretty famous animation. People were trying to figure out how to tell like if a horse has all of their feet off the ground when they're running or something. So they did this taking pictures of the horse as it was running, um, and made sprites. So an individual picture later became called a sprite, and a sprite sheet has all of the sprites laid out like this. And then when you cycle through the different sprites really, really fast, it looks like it's moving. So that should hopefully explain this terminology. This is what Unity calls it, and that's what I will be calling it. So, how do you make good sprites? I don't know. I'm not an artist. Why are you asking me? We're gonna move on. This is the best I've got, and it isn't even good. Um, no, 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 that is good. How do we put that into Unity? Of course, we can put that in Unity. I think these jokes were a lot better when I was writing them at 2 a.m., but that might just be me. Um, so I use this site, Piskel. Um, right, I have to sign in real quick. Um, and it's a really easy site, even I can use it. And it allows you to make quick pixel art. I'll just use this one. Oh, I don't want to see ads or translate it from Italian. So as you can see, I went through years ago and I drew a bunch of different singular sprites, and up here it shows me what that looks like as an animation, and then I can export it as a PNG sprite sheet. This is important. And this is how I made these sprites. I, again, really don't know how to make good sprites, so please don't ask me for advice on drawing that. But that's how I got this in Sprite Sheets. You can also just like download Sprite Sheets off of the internet, um, or off of the asset store. It's really easy to find Sprite Sheets. It's figuring out what to do with them that is more difficult, I find, and that's what I'm going to more go over. So I currently have this. Oh no, it's in my Sprite Sheets folder. So I have this as a PNG, and here's the things that we have to do in order to make that sprite sheet animated. We're going to cut the sprite sheet back into the individual sprites. We're going to make a clip, and then we're going to use code to determine what clips go in. I'll go ahead and start working on that. Are there any questions thus far? Because I think it's pretty straightforward.
Good.
Okay. I know I went a little bit fast. It's, never mind. So I'm going to add in these sprite sheets, and as I'm adding them in, Unity is recognizing, hey, these are probably sprite sheets. So it has this, and this shows me what Unity thinks is every individual sprite in that picture. And currently, that is not every individual sprite. Unity isn't so smart as to automatically divide things. So this is multiple sprites, and it isn't just one. So after I do that, I'm going to scroll down and hit apply. So it's really simple. I just dragged this PNG into the assets folder, and then I went sprite mode, multiple, and then I applied it. And now we can go into the sprite editor, and that looks like this. Oh. Okay. And now that we're here, it's really simple to slice this. We just go to slice. We could go to automatic, and I'll show you what that looks like. Automatic thinks, oh, well, clearly these are 4 columns. And that's not right. Unity isn't super smart. So we're going to use grid by cell count instead. So that way we get these like thin white boxes. I'm not sure if you can see that on Discord, but I want these thin white boxes to be around every individual frame of the coin. So it's a 4x4 grid, and that looks a lot better. And Unity can recognize that I didn't draw anything right there, so it'll automatically like not include those, which is very nice. And then we've got it good. We're going to hit apply. It'll load, and we're good. So now if I click this, I can see every individual frame that Unity, or every individual sprite that Unity recognizes through this frame. Oh, I just realized I didn't make these sprite sheets available for you guys. Is that something that you guys would find helpful, is following along exactly, or is it okay if I just like upload these later?
I think it's alright for now. Yeah, I'd say it's good for now.
Okay, I'm sorry, that is, in retrospect, something that I probably should have done. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so now we've got all these different sprites, and I want them to be animated. Just to make things clear, I'm going to make a new scene. No. Yeah. And I'm going to call this animation. And this is just so that way I don't have anything on the level while I'm working with messing with the animation. So I'm going to drag one of the sprites into the scene, And we're going to create a new animation. Oh, no, what we're going to do is we're going to drag this pickup into here, and it'll automatically save it as a new clip. So we don't need to drag the individual frame. We drag the entire sprite sheet in, and we're going to name this coin anim. And we can delete that. We don't need it. And I also don't need that. So this is what we're going to use to start figuring out what this animation is going to look like. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so that way we can see it a bit better. And now in order for us to actually like mess with the animation, I'm going to go to Window, Animation. I'm going to open up the Animation tab, and I'm going to put that down here. And then I'm also going to open up Animation, the Animator, and that's going to go right here. So if I click on this animation, it'll show it up here. And if I hit play, we can see, wow, we've already got an animation. Because Unity made it very simple just to get things going. And if I look at the animator, sorry. So if we look at the animation, we should be able to hit that play button. I'm not sure why that's not working. Unity automatically recognized that I'm probably working at 12 sprites or frames a second. That's pretty standard, I think. Again, I don't know much about animation, but I do know that when I drew this, I was drawing it at 12 frames a second, or with that intended. If you wanted it to go faster, you could say 50, and then hit play, and it spins really fast. So if you have a sprite and it's not running at the speed that you wanted it to, that's how you would fix it. It should let you play it. I'm not sure why that's not working. Oh, we have to click the sprite that we want the animation to play on. So now if we hit play, that lets us preview what's going on. And that's how we can tell that our animation clip is working right. And then in the animator, this is what we call a state machine. You have to middle click on your mouse. Huh? Oh. From what I've found, it hasn't, Cameron. The big thing about the animation frame rate is just telling Unity how many frames it needs to wait. Like, from what I found, it doesn't cause problems. And although like my game runs at 60 frames per second, my 12 frames a second animations generally work fine. I'll show you that later. But the short answer is no. It does not affect anything. Moving back to this, we have what we call a state machine. And this is a little difficult to see. Over here, we have layers. So if we want different like animations on this one sprite playing over top of each other, like I don't know, maybe you get a magic helmet and it has like a little sparkle animation on top of the helmet that you want also like that you want playing over top of the player running for example. That's how you would do the layering over here. Another, uh, but I don't really see a need to get into that right now because we're just trying to go over the basics. Here are parameters. Uh, this is how you get to the parameters tab because I know I'm going to forget to say that later. But the basic thing is, if you guys have used Scratch, this is kind of like Scratch, where entry. So this is kind of like the when flag is clicked, do this, and this is the clip that we just made, the coin anim, and it's basically just going to loop this over and over and over again ad infinitum. If I wanted it to just play once, I could make a transition to exit, and now when I hit play, it does. Okay, that doesn't work. Um. Oh. Uh. So if I wanted it just to play once, I would not have it have loop time. No. Okay, clearly I need to do more research into that, but most animations that I've done generally just work like this, where it plays once and then, or like generally you want animations to loop because you want the game to be more like lively and always have things going on, I think. Mm, maybe. I don't really know. Uh, I don't really know. I apologize. I didn't really like. I'm kind of going through this on the fly. Um, but one thing I'd like to say is that I don't generally um have the animation play once and then the thing ends because we've got games and the thing is like the game runs, constantly, and you might want to have it uh run through different states rather like it's more once it hits exit, it can't do any more animations. So it's more of like a special case you'd want it to actually terminate. Generally, we just have the like entry or the win flag is clicked, and then it goes into different states with animations. The coin is a pretty simple one. Uh, but going back to what I was trying to say, we've got this. It's the coin. I'm gonna rename it to coin. Better coin. And this is a sprite, and it's got this animator on it. So I'm going to add all the components that this coin had to it, like a circle collider that is trigger. We can use that to make sure that it hits the edges. And you might be able to see that does line up, so I'm going to leave it. And it also had the coin script, but we kind of don't need that. And I'm going to phase the coin script out, actually. Um, Regardless, this is now our better coin, and I'm going to make this a prefab by dragging it back down. And this is now our better coin prefab. And now we can go back to our previous scene, which is level 1. I'm going to save this, even though we really don't need to. And we can delete all of these coins. Oh, shoot. Did that prefab have a circle? It did. It does have a circle collider 2D. Unity thought of that before I did. So now we've got these new coins. Oh. Right. We need to go back to Coin anim, this does have loop time. Right. Of course, this needs to be exactly like the coin in the fact that it is tagged as a coin. Then we can go back into the player script real quick. I'm sorry, I'm doing this on the fly and kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of want to do that. So it was right here. Destroy other.game object. And then that should be good. And now we can get into the player animation real quick. This might actually take more than 30 minutes. I apologize. One thing you might be able to see is this light blue is our player animation. And I have like 3 animations that I want to go through in order to show you like how to go through different states. We have an idle animation, a jump animation, and a run animation. And these are going to work the exact same, where we need to make them multiple sprites. Open up the sprite editor. We're going to slice it by grid count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 4. And that lines up well. So we're going to apply. And then we slice these as well. And just real quick, I'm going to go back to that animation scene. And it... Ooh, we have 7 this time. And you can slice it multiple times just to make sure that things line up right. Just make sure you don't hit the apply button yet. And once we have all of these sliced, then we can start making clips for these. Making sure that these line up nicely. Oh, another thing is that if our sprites have offset, like there's like space in between the different sprites, you can mess with that setting here. And padding. Padding is in between the sprites, and then offset is like extra space in the left-hand side or the top side. If you're having trouble getting to line up, I believe you can also manually slice it, but that is incredibly tedious for big sprites. So I recommend trying to have sprite sheets that are nicely sliced. And then once we have these, we can drag them in. And this is player, or I guess I can name it idle anim, or player idle anim. And we need different clips for each of these. So this is player jump anim. And this is player run anim. And we have animator controllers. We don't need these for every single like what these are is these are different of these state machines. So we only need one of these for the player sprite. So I'm going to delete these two. Because we only have one player, we just want it to go through these different clips. So we only need one controller. And now that we have this, we have these different clips, we can go to our animator, and to add these clips in, we just drag them in. You have to middle click in order to go around. So now we have a player idle anim, and the jump anim, and the run anim, and these are all on the controller, which is on this guy. So when we go to the animation, we can hit play, and we can see that he has his little idle animation. If we click the jump animation, and also the player, we can access all of his different animations. So what we need is a set of parameters to figure out whether the player is jumping and whether the player is running. So we're going to add, and they can be different types of things like, oh, well, if you're running this fast, then they go into a faster running animation. So these are just different types of variables. I tend to use Booleans because it, yes and no is generally how I think about switching between animation, but there are other ways to do it. So I want is running, and this is going to determine whether or not the player is running. And then I want another one for is jumping. So we're going to make a bunch of transitions between these guys. So if the player is idling, then I want them to be able to go to jumping or to running. If the player is jumping, after they jump, I want them to be able to run. And if the player is running, I want them to be able to jump. If the player just jumped and now they're standing still, I want them to be able to idle. And if the player stops running, I want them to be able to idle as well. So now that we've got these transitions, we can click on these transitions to there's the conditions list. So if the player is moving from idling to jumping, then is running is true. And vice versa, is running is false. And also, if the player is going to the is running, they are not jumping. Because I want the jumping animation to take precedence over the running animation. So if the player is idling and they're moving into a jump, then they are jumping, and I don't care about whether they're running or not. And vice versa, if the player is moving into the is jumping, or yeah. So if they're moving into the idle animation, then is jumping is false, and is running is also false, because the is running takes precedence over idling. Hopefully this makes sense. So if they're moving into is running, then is running is true, and is jumping is false. And if they're moving into this, then is jumping is true, and is running I don't care about. So I can actually delete that parameter. Okay. And then there's also this. I don't want them to have exit time. And this is like trying to make animations smooth, but I want exit time to be 0, and I want the transition to be 0, so that way it just immediately jumps into the next animation. This can be nice when you have like prettier animations, but I have not put that much effort into making nice animations. So it just hard cuts to the next animation. Hopefully that makes sense. Now that we've got the states right, these two Booleans, we need to define in the code what's going to trigger those Booleans. So we're going to go to our player script, and this is going to be really simple. Sorry that I'm running over. Not now. We're going to make some Booleans. And these are is running, is jumping. And these are going to be public because the animation needs to be able to see them. And this is going to be really simple. So if they're not moving, move direction is 0, is running equals false. And then if they're moving in either direction, I want is running to equal true. Are there any questions? Because I know that I've been going kind of fast and also have been wasting a lot of time.
That makes sense. You're good.
Okay. So if they are able to hit the jump button, like already I have this condition for if they are jumping, I want is jumping to equal true. And then I have here, which is when they collide with the ground. Is jumping equals false. If I were a smarter programmer, I would have made these two Booleans interconnected, and I may do that in a future version of the movement script, because as you can see, we don't really need two Booleans here. I could definitely optimize this programming, but I'm just trying to get this done because it's 8:35. I'm running over time. So this should compile. And now we're going to make this guy, we're going to rename him to Better Player. And we're going to go back to our player. And we're going to make them a prefab here. And it might be helpful to like make another subfolder in this for the prefab, so that way I don't have to look at all the animation stuff. It's really up to you about how to keep things organized. But as you can see, if I had left everything in the assets folder, it would be a mess by now, and we still don't even have much going on in this game. So we're going to go back to level 1 and zoom out a little bit. And we're going to delete this player. Actually, we need to go back to this player, and we need to both tag them as player. We need to add the box collider 2D. And we can check this. And as you can see, it doesn't go all the way down, or it goes down too far. So I can make him smaller, like 0.75. And that makes it line up a little bit nicer with the bottom of his like flame tail thing. And we also need the platformer script, and we also need the rigid body. And that was dynamic. And now that our prefab is working, or is set the same way that the old player was, you can add that back in. They are small, so we're going to make them a bit bigger. Double the size. Now I can hit play again, see what happens. So it's idling, and the player's just kind of like idling. They run, and they have like a slightly different animation, and they jump. I need to fix the jump. Oh, let's make that 5. Okay, they aren't going through the animations. One thing that is noticeable is they don't flip. So one thing that I'd like to add in real quick is the player flipping when they change their direction. So to do that, we're going to add in right here. Hmm? Uh, okay. I'm actually blanking on how to do this, so I'm going to pull up the version of the project where it does work, and then I'll show you how it works, because I'm smart like that. I did prepare everything beforehand, um, as you might be able to see. I had more things planned to go over today, but I didn't quite get there. So we've got Flame Boy. Um, right. Um, as you can see, it's a different version of the same game. We were going to animate the portal to make it look nicer and make the ground look nice, and I was going to talk about how to do the backgrounds, but that's not what matters right now. What matters is we need to get this platformer script. Okay, so we didn't need to make those booleans public. Oh, we needed to make so this is the animator component on the player, and what we needed to do is set the those booleans true like that. I forgot that. I apologize for being confusing. I wrote this set of slides like a week and a half ago and forgot to go back over them. Um, so it's set the component dot set bool, the name in quotation marks because it's a string, to true. It's the same concept, just making the call slightly differently. And then what I was trying to talk about with the flipping is right here. I don't know what Euler angles are, but it, the transform of the player is still in 3D. So if I show you real quick by turning the 2D view off, we are in a 3D environment. So as you can see, like the background is behind this. And this player has like a 3D existence, even though they're like a sheet of paper. And the Euler angles is essentially this, I think, like the rotation here. and we can set the rotation in a way that, like, if I set this to 180, then it flips it. Hopefully that makes sense. I apologize for not looking that up, but it's the same concept. Am I making sense? Like, does this concept make sense? Feel free to unmute yourself. You don't have to type in meeting chat. Um,
Oh, I was going to spew a little bit of useless information where I was going to say that Euler angles are traditional XYZ rotations as opposed to using like matrices or in order to figure out like the rotation of your object.
oh, okay. That sounds like calculus stuff that I didn't bother to learn. But it sounds neat. So if we click this back, we can go back into the 2D view. Some things that are different in this is obviously the portal also has an animation, and we can look at its animator. It's the same thing as the coin. And then also this ground, if I go into the asset folder for that, it's instead of being like a bunch of different sprites that we're going to flip through really fast and make an animation clip for, it's just like a folder essentially. And I can drag these into this little, there's like a top row and a bottom row of transforms at different spaces, and then I can like add in different like sprites into those to build a neat looking ground. We've got this background. It's essentially the same thing as the ending slide, where it's just like a really big sprite in the background. And as you can see, it has a positive Z, so it's further away from the camera than the player is, which puts it in the background and has it unaffect the player. It's also on the layer background, but I don't really mess with layers. That's more of an aesthetic thing for me. And then the main camera, no, I'll get into that later. But if I hit play and then let it play, you can see that the player goes through an animation. When they run, their head actually sticks forward a little bit more. I don't know how visible that is. But then they jump and they go through the little jump animation. And then I can go through really quick how that camera script works if anyone is bothered to be, if anyone would like to see that. But that is basically how you do animation in Unity. Are there any questions?
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay. I apologize again for how odd this meeting was and how unprofessional I have been. Going over that camera script real quick, it's really simple. It's just the transform of the camera equals whatever the player's position is, and then the normal camera position. And then I added that to the main camera and gave it the player's transform. And that's about it. Now we've got like a really nice looking game with animations and camera moves, and the player can pick up stuff and move between levels. And I think next I'm going to go over how to make enemies and or lives, stuff like that, like how to respawn, maybe how to display stuff like that on the screen so you can see how many lives you have. Thank you guys for putting up with me. I hope you learned some stuff. and I will do my best to make sure that the next meeting goes a little bit smoother.
All right. Thanks for the tutorial.
Yeah, no problem.
Peace.